Food security is definitely one of the most important strategic objectives any country will ever have. There is an understanding that those not capable of feeding themselves are not capable of independently deciding. Well, in layman's terms, this translates to beggars can't be choosers. Thus, the imperativeness of food security. The Global Food Security Index ranks countries based on the affordability, the availability, the quality and safety, as well as natural resources and resilience. There are challenges facing countries, and solutions must be presented. Therefore, embarking on the cultivation of over 1.5 million fadans and developing the agricultural production in this country has been prioritized, along with the other short and long-term investment opportunities and the reform process that is currently underway. Priorities are many, and progress is being made across the board. Good evening. You're watching the Business Insider. I'm Ayman Salah. We'll be back. Welcome back to the Business Insider. Let's start with some news, and the first item is that Egypt's economic courts will boost their performance through automation. Councillor Ahmed Khairi, the Assistant Minister of Justice, said that automating Egypt's economic courts is part of the government's digitalization strategy to create a more productive and transparent justice system that citizens and investors can rely on. The specialized courts focus on resolving economic and commercial disputes and are entrusted with serving citizens and safeguarding local and foreign investments in Egypt. The Economic Court is the first judicial body to take a full digitalization leap, which will serve to improve the country's worldwide ranking and will provide quicker and more accessible justice to all. The Justice, or the flagship digital justice platform, will automate and integrate end-to-end judiciary processes and services, including legal case filing, assignment, scheduling, distribution, transfers, management, among others. Through an integrated online portal, citizens, lawyers, and legal case stakeholders can register, e-file new cases, follow up on case progress, set appointments, receive judges' decisions, and make e-payments. With us on the line is Dr. Mohammed Fahmy. He's a professor of economics in the American University in Cairo. A pleasure having you with us. First, let's start with the significance of the move to digitize Egypt's economic courts.
Thank you for having me.
Pleasure.
I think it's very significant on many levels because, first of all, this is a big step towards accelerating justice delivery and encouraging investment, because one of the major challenges that have been facing the economic process and the commercial dealings in Egypt generally has been the difficulty in administering the legal framework, in settling disputes. And when you have an efficient, digitized, well-organized process, this is very important. I think it sends the right messages to investors and also to the society in general as well.
One of the main obstacles to boosting investments or to attracting investments has always or has been for some time now the speed of litigation. Now,
yes,
this will definitely serve as a booster in that regard. How much of a factor was this when foreign investments were being decided?
Very, very big factor. Again, that there are a number of factors that investors usually prioritize or select their portfolios, and one of these factors was, again, the ease of settling disputes and also the startup. On the startup point, I think Egypt has gone into tremendous really, places with the most recent issuing of the new investment law, and now we have this, what we call the
one-stop shop.
Exactly, one-stop shop that you can just go and you can, finalize all your dealings from the same place. So I think we've achieved some good steps in that direction already. But this I think takes us a step further by adding to this also the state enforcement mechanisms that facilitate the process for the investors. Because it's not enough to just set up your business and then when you face a problem you stumble again. So this again, in addition to it sending the right messages to both, I think also not only foreign direct investors, but also for local investors here. We're talking about the stock exchange. We're talking about even small and medium enterprises. I think this will help really, with a lot of the challenges facing investors, both big and small in the country.
You touched on a very important issue. After litigation, after a decision is made, you enter into a phase of enforcement. How does this contribute to that aspect of due process?
I think it helps. It helps a lot, but it doesn't solve the whole dilemma because, when you talk about enforcement, you're also, the executive branch is also involved. You're talking about the state agencies that are also able to implement these decisions taken. But again, it's one step in the right direction because when we're talking about digitizing the entire economy, I think the next step would be to also digitize and make the executive process also more efficient and more useful for the investors and also for the individuals. So I think again this will also speed up the process and create more, I would say, demand for the executive branch also to be digitized and to keep up with the pace that's already taken place in the legislative and in the legal branch in general.
Economic courts are one aspect, but you also have the rest of the whole system, if you will. One can't help but notice the registration offices that are now being set up even in malls, and you have to go online to book an appointment and go into that office in a certain mall or in places where the service has been upgraded.
Yes.
How long do you perceive, not how long, but how is this going to encompass the whole system across the country?
Well, again, it's investment is a process, and it's a long-term process, by definition. So you need to have all the different steps along this process, kept up in the same sort of, framework or mindset, if you will. So the ease of the startup is very important, and we've achieved that, or we are achieving that already. Now, this is another step. We're talking about the digitization. I think it sends a very right message. I think this has to also be coupled with, I would say, remapping of the investment, vision of Egypt in light of the post-pandemic era, because this will be a very competitive time period. A lot of small and medium enterprise, a lot of middle-income countries like Egypt will be competing for attracting investment in the coming period, and a lot of funds will be flowing around looking for a place to go. So I think this is very important to be also marketed in the right way, both regionally and globally. And if it is, then it will definitely play a big role in boosting the investment in Egypt.
And the country's worldwide ranking, which is where through your readings, how big of a difference is this going to make for our ranking in terms of doing business?
Well, hopefully it will. But again, this will have to be coupled also with the practice, right? So this is, again, the importance of making sure that these new additions are also being utilized by people, and that this process is communicated and marketed to the rest of the world in the right way. Because if it is, and if it's implemented, if it's tried, and if it's perceived by people both here and abroad in the right way, then it will definitely boost up Egypt's ranking in the investment map. Because the other indicators are also going in the right direction. You're talking about the World Bank and the IMF very, very favorably ranking Egypt recently with the right reports on the state of the economic setting in the country as a whole. So, again, this is a very positive step, and hopefully it will be utilized in the right manner.
Dr. Mohammed Fahmy, Professor of Economics at the American University in Cairo, thank you very much for joining us here on the show. All right, now let's move to our second news item, and it goes around the same investment and same economic standing, if you will. Foreign holdings of Egyptian Treasury bills jumped to $20.8 billion as of the end of April, up from $20 billion in March. That's according to central bank figures released on Tuesday. Investors put almost $3 billion into the short-term debt instruments during the first 4 months of the year, as sentiment continued to improve following the dramatic sell-off in emerging markets in March 2020. Investment in bills and bonds hit a record high earlier this year, with foreign inflows into Egyptian debt surging to a record $28.5 billion in February, making up for outflows suffered during the COVID-induced sell-off last year and bringing holdings back above pre-COVID levels. Sentiment is buoyed by Egypt's high real interest rate, which is among the best in the world, low currency risk, and supportive economic policies being pushed by both the Central Bank of Egypt and the government. Carry trade as well as debt instruments are our topics tonight, so stay with the Business Insider. Welcome back. You're watching the Business Insider. Now, the debt instruments, investments, short-term investments are our topics tonight, as well as the carry trade. Let's watch this report.
Short-term investment interest is still maintained due to the country's interest rate, which is among the best in the world, low currency risk and supportive economic policies. Egypt's carry trade is predicted to continue its upward trajectory thanks to its attractive real interest rates, close to 4%, and low-risk environment. It has also made policy creditable gains from the IMF program, which continues its progressive course. Analysts view the country as the most attractive emerging market in carry trade, remaining an investor favorite. As important as the carry trade is, high rates may discourage private sector investment due to the high interest rate. However, investors will continue to be drawn to low-risk, high-return government bonds. The carry trade is an appealing source of high returns for foreign investors and an important source of hard currency. It showed resilience in the face of the economic fallout from COVID-19 and rebounded over the summer, making Egypt once again a priority destination for carry trade investors. The concept is fairly simple. An investor takes a currency with a low interest rate, such as the euro or the US dollar, and buys a currency offering a higher rate of interest. The investor pockets the difference and interest when converting back to the funding currency or the original one. However, this can be incredibly risky due to the fluctuations in the exchange rate. Egypt, on the other hand, is considered one of the world's best carry trades. The Egyptian pound has been gaining almost 13% against the greenback since the beginning of 2019, interrupted by the huge capital outflows during the EM sell-off in March and April 2020 due to COVID. Then the tide quickly began to turn again in Egypt's favor, with increasing investor appetite for high-yielding investments in emerging economies. With low currency risk, stability and reform, short-term investors pave the way for the long-term ones.
Welcome back. You're watching the Business Insider. With us on the line is Dr. Bassant Fahmy, former Member of Parliament and economic expert. A pleasure to have you with us on the phone. Let's start with the two kinds of investments, if you will, short and long-term investments. What attracts short-term investors and what do they do?
Thank you very much. It's my pleasure. First of all, when we look at the world, the globe, now the globe is very sensitive when it comes to investment. The investors, especially the funds, are very well informed of two things. First of all, the risk, because when you invest somewhere, you have to calculate a specific risk. Second, the return. The return has to comply with the type of risk you are really going into. Third, the availability of easy entry, easy exit. When they come and invest in our instruments, they have to calculate the possibility of our going out as well. So the 3 points are always there. If you look at all the reports written by international evaluating institutions, they all talk about the Egyptian economy as being an economy of working in a very professional manner. The rate of development is positive. It is not an up and down. It is on the upward trend. The availability of foreign currency is there. The possibility of paying back is there. The easy exit is there. So the calculation of going in Egypt, whether on short-term investment or medium or long, is very well calculated. And another most important, a very important point as well, is that when we borrow this money or when we take this amount of money from investors, we reinvest, meaning the level of investments going in Egypt on all aspects, would it be on the green economy, the blue economy, the infrastructure, the new cities, you name it, in all aspects, we're building a new country. So we're not taking this amount of money, I'm sorry to say, to eat and dress with it. No.
Which was the case in previous eras.
Definitely. No, in previous eras, the economy was very, very badly managed. Don't want to go into that, but anyway, let's look at the future. We have a very comprehensive business plan. We have a strong strategy. It's very well developed, has been very well discussed at the Parliament, approved by Mr. President, followed minute by Mr. President and all institutions in the country. So we are going on the right track in a professional manner. We are investing in real economy. But in the past, it was not real economy. They used to call it iqtisad ri'i. I don't find the word in English, but I think non-realistic economy, perhaps that's the word. And we are taking the development from bottom to up, meaning from the very micro small business, where we call it the creative economy, up to small, medium, and large. So we are we have a very, very professional and comprehensive plan. Results are calculated minute by minute, followed by the whole world. So when they come and invest in our instruments, they know very well where the money is going, because there is another major point as well. The green economy is becoming very important. The food as well, supply in the world is very critical part of any economy in the world. Keeping as well the environment clean is essential. So when they look at our way of establishing our economy, how we develop it, we take care of all what we mentioned. In addition, that all amount of money taken into those instruments are reinvested in real economy, I repeat, real economy, so that it could be paid back safely to them with a minimum amount of risk calculated.
When we talk about the carry trade and investments in debt instruments or in foreign exchange and so on and so forth, some would consider it as hot money, which is not conducive to growth. What would you respond? How would you respond?
No, I totally disagree, because you always, when we look at economies in the world, or even in one country, some parts have excess liquidity. Some others need liquidity. Like when we put our amount of money in the bank, the banks do not keep it. They take this liquidity, lend it, or give it to people who invest. So it's a way to take from the entities or individuals who have excess money, excess liquidity, to be invested in investments they accept as well. Meaning in some parts of the world, you don't go and invest because you know sometimes that this investment will go into activities you might not agree to. And that's why I say it's a liquidity, excess liquidity in certain hands, which goes into investment ideas in other hands, and it develops the life, as we say, and the economy, and the standard of living, peace on earth, many things. So I think, no, it is not hot money or whatever, although sometimes it could be. It goes fast and go out fast. And again, there is nothing wrong with that. It happens everywhere. Like you put amount in the bank and you withdraw it after a while.
So the best ingredients, from what I understand until now, is a mix between short-term investments, long-term investments, in order to reach your development goals. Am I correct?
Short, medium, and long. Long is rare. Because long, you should look to risk and return in a very long period. But medium is always there, meaning between 3 to 5 years. Short is less than a year. But a long term is a little difficult because you need, as I mentioned, has to calculate correctly risk in the very long term and return in the very long term, which is not easy to do.
Right. What makes us stand out in terms of being part of the emerging markets? Why are we receiving more and more investments in a period when the world is suffering from a pandemic, from a slowdown, from decreased output, if you will?
First, Egypt enjoys a very well-diversified economy. I want to repeat this. Highly diversified economy. You could work on all aspects of the economy: green economy, blue economy, gas, oil, gold, infrastructure, building cities, you name it. And you can do this 365 days and nights. Why? Because of the climate. We have a very, very acceptable climate day and night. We have 50% of our population young generation. Most of the projects we see are financed by Egyptian pounds, meaning they go from a hand to a hand to a hand. That's why the level of inflation is down, the poverty is down, and many things I don't want to talk about now. But we have that diversified economy, the climate, and the young generation allows you to work all year round, day and night. Although COVID-19 is there, you don't have to go into closed areas like manufacturing places like Europe and other parts of the world. They're closed. And other parts, the whole climate is not acceptable. It could be very cold or very hot. We have points of strength, and that's why I always say Egypt hasn't existed for 7,000 years accidentally. We have very strong pillars to grow on. And we are in the middle of the world. If you look at the geographic location, you're in the middle of the world. You are at the entry to Africa since the pharaohs. So we have very strong points, and we capitalize on by a very comprehensive strategy, 2030, for the development of Egypt. And as Mr. President mentioned, building new Egypt. This is very true. That's why we're moving very fast, because of the points I just mentioned. And that's why people come in and buy our instruments, which helps us in a way as well to develop further the economy, because if you want to develop, you need finance. And I repeat, most of the projects we're working on are financed by Egyptian pounds, moving from a hand to a hand. Second, we never, and I repeat, we don't have a single employer or employee from outside. They're all Egyptians, young generations who work in Egypt. The companies are Egyptians, the factories supplying the material Egyptians, the employees are Egyptians. So all those strong points developed the results we just saw, and all the, as I mentioned, the Russian institutions are always talking about.
Explain to me the point of attraction when they say the high real interest rate is attractive for investors.
When you go and invest, you need to have a real interest rate, meaning when you take your money back, the reward should be acceptable, meaning you don't get an amount of money which is less in the purchase power than the amount of money you came in.
So here you're talking about inflation compared to the interest rate.
Exactly. It is real. So when they come and invest and we want to get their money back, they know that the amount of money they're getting back is an acceptable amount from an investor point of view compared to anywhere else in the world. And that's why they call it real revenue, not a fictitious revenue.
All right. How are these indicators affecting the stock market, and what role can the stock market play, and how?
In my personal opinion, we can play a much bigger role in the stock market in the coming period for a simple reason. First of all, we need to develop new ways of investment for the investors, like the crowding finance. I spoke about it several times. You need to have a large number of funds. Each one is specialized in a specific type of investment. And that's why we call it crowding finance, because it's a very long number, but it has to be very well studied. Some people would like to invest in agriculture, others would like to invest in fishing, third in infrastructure. So we need to have that type of crowding finance, a long number of funds to be developed. And the fund, definitely, the strength of a fund is by who is issuing, who is behind the fund. Most of the strong funds behind them are banks, and who is managing the fund. And this is a very important point as well. So I think crowding finance should be a major issue to consider. And I, in my personal opinion, think it will attract a very large number of investors from outside and inside the country, because we have a long list of projects to accomplish in Egypt. We live on 7% of our area, or surface areas. I think we have to reach 30% by 2030. So this is a big job, and we have to as well invest in Africa, cooperate with them in the region. I know, like you saw in Gaza, we have a long plan of investment, and that's why I said we need to develop the system of crowding finance, a very long list of funds. Each one would be specialized in a specific market, and I believe that the investors will be very happy to choose specifically where they want to invest.
You're talking funds as in real estate funds, as in medical services funds, so on and so forth? Exactly. All right. So when will you be worried that the carry trade will no longer be luring investors?
In Egypt, I am not worried for at least 30 to 40 years to go, because we are 100 million Egyptians, but we have a surface of 1 million square meters. Kilometers. I'm sorry, square kilometers. We live on 70%. So you have 90%.
We live on 7%.
7%. I'm sorry. 7%. So you have 93% of your land open for investment. So we're not worried now. I mean, we have a vision where Egypt could continue to promote investments for another 30 to 40 years to go.
And growth. Dr. Bassant Fahmy, economic expert, former member of Egypt's parliament, thank you very much for joining us on the program. We'll be back.
تحية تقدير واحترام لبطل حقيقي. البطل ده هو مصر وشعبها. الحكاية مش حكاية لا حكومة ولا قيادة، ده حكاية كل مواطن في مصر أكرمتوا مصر وشرفتوا مصر وعزيتوا مصر. انتم قتلتوا، فالشرف كل الشرف والكرامة كل الكرامة والفضل كل الفضل لله سبحانه وتعالى، ثم ليكم انتم. شرفتوني واكرمتموني وعزتوني ورفعتوا راسي قدام الدنيا كلها باللي انتم عملتوه. والله 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 لن يستطيع اي رئيس يقف مكاني هنا انه يقدر يعمل حاجه بدونكم. لن يستطيع. قصه وطن يتحدث عن نفسه، شعب اراد الحياه فاستجاب له القدر. لازم نعترف إن 25 يناير و30/6 حجم الوعي السياسي والإحساس بالوطن ومخاطره مش تضاعف، بقى غير مسبوق. من 6 سنين قلت لكم إن إحنا هنبنيها مع بعض. إحنا هنفضل نشتغل ونبني ونعمر في بلدنا لآخر لحظة. خلونا نحط ايدينا في ايدين بعض. احنا لا نبغي إلا البناء والتنمية والسلام.
Welcome back. The carry trade and short-term investments, our topics tonight. With us on the line is Dr. Tariq Mohi, economic expert. A pleasure to have you with us on the line. Why would you say, or why are investors attracted to short-term investments here in Egypt?
Good evening, Simon. Nice to meet you.
Pleasure.
Hello?
Pleasure.
Hello?
Yes, a pleasure having you. Go ahead.
Okay. Good evening, Simon, and special greeting to you.
Thank you.
About already Egypt launched now for short investment, second and investment. Egypt launched now the second phase for economic reforms program, which is connected and structures reforms and extend over a period of 3 years after completing the first phase, which addresses implants monetary and fiscal policies. Hello?
Yes, I can hear you. Go ahead.
Yes. Cairo, now Egypt began the first phase November 2016 till December 2019, is according with the Industrial Monetary Fund, and later creating Egypt now to $12 million in 6 tranches to help it improve its performance. Now, the maximum for this already for second phase. Second phase, Egyptian now Prime Minister Mustafa Madbouli said already the last time already for propose the launching and second phase of the program is to bring the growth rate and about 7% with the next 3 years. Now, this created already from Mr. Madbouli, and instead of 3.6% during the current year.
And during the pandemic as well.
Yes, correct. In addition, the rating of contribution of number of sector of gross domestic product and share of the communication and information technology sector will reach 5% instead of 2.8 currently, in addition to increasing. This already percentage very good from instead of 2.8, 2.20 increase. The percentage of sector from 12 to 12.5% percentage to 15. Already also 2.5 currently point
Right.
of the risk.
Dr.
for
Tariq, let me interrupt you here and ask you about the attractiveness of the country for the carry trade, for short-term investments, for investing in treasury bills, in bonds, and so on. What do you see as the main factors for this attraction, and how long do you perceive it will last?
Already, President Sisi is follow up all projects now for carriers already. And already, industry project, they're very important for the next 5 years now. In the industry project, they're very, very important now already. And already about the price, the Prime Minister indicated of the reform ministry, physical policies. Already, you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
And hello?
Yes, I can hear you. Go ahead.
And according to what Egyptian government now announced the program for second phase, based off 5 main axis formats already. Hello? And already? Hello?
Yes, we can hear you. We can hear you. Go ahead.
Yes. Already supporting according to the pace of technology.
Right.
Hello?
Okay. So it seems we have an issue with the line. Dr. Tariq Mohi, economic expert, thank you very much for joining us. That was two perceptions on the carry trade and on investment in the country, and it remains to be said that the analysts' view that this emerging market is one of the most attractive emerging markets in carry trade and remains an investor favorite. Of course, they highlight that this is due to a number of factors, one of which is the low risk, high return that is currently being witnessed by this kind of investment. That's all we have for you for this week. I'm Ayman Salah. Thanks for watching.